Okay, we're going to go through settings. I'm going to do this in parts. I'm going to skip over some stuff just because I don't want to do information overload. So I will get back to settings if I skip over something. Might do it when it's more related to the particular application. So the settings icon is the little silver one with the cogwheels that we see here. So click that and you get a number of different setting options that you can have. Airplane mode, this is an important one if you're flying. What this does is it turns off any ability to access the internet, whether via your cellular data or Wi-Fi. And so if your airplane mode is on, you can then use your device whilst in an aeroplane. And if your airplane mode is on, you won't be able to get emails or browse the internet, play words with friends, etc. Wi-Fi, next button down. This is where you connect to your home network and get internet access, or at the cafe, etc. We'll go through how to set up a Wi-Fi separately. Bluetooth, this is where you connect to different devices, so you can turn your Bluetooth on. It will find various devices that you can connect to, and you then choose that device and can connect to it. I'll go through how to connect to a Bluetooth device in more detail. Cellular data, this is because I have a SIM card in my iPad. I've got a number of settings that I'd like to show you. Cellular data on and off just means that I can either use my SIM to access the internet or not. Data roaming is when you go overseas, you need to specifically turn on to say that your iPad can roam international data, and that's very, very expensive. So a lot of people get very, very nervous about using devices overseas. You should be fine as long as, or you will be fine as long as your data roaming is turned off. So don't fiddle with that button. If you do go overseas, I suggest that you buy a local SIM. APN settings you don't need to worry about. These are mobile carrier specific, and if you do get a SIM from another country or change carriers, they will give you different settings to change in that. Personal hotspot, this is where you want other devices to hotspot off your existing device, and you can set that whether you want that to happen on your cellular data. The use cellular data for gives you different options. If you wanted to preserve your cellular data, say for example only download iCloud documents whilst you're on Wi-Fi, you would turn this off here. The same goes for iTunes. If you didn't want to receive a FaceTime call and use your cellular data, you would turn this off here. Personal hotspot. Okay, I can't show you personal hotspot because it disconnects from my Wi-Fi application and the recording capability disappears. So apologies for that, I'll have to do a written guide. The next thing to go, the carrier, that's just who I've got my SIM card with, and we don't fiddle with these settings. Do not disturb. If you notice the time up at the top in the middle here, I'm going to put my do not disturb on, and you'll see that the moon appears here. Now what that means is none of my notifications are going to make a noise during the night, depending on my do not disturb settings, which we'll go to in a second under notification. I'm just going to turn that off. We go into notifications. Now under do not disturb, we've got the option. I use scheduled because every night at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. my iPad goes on to do not disturb, and That means I don't allow any calls from anyone, but I do allow, if my mum was to FaceTime me several times in a very short space of time, it will cancel the do not disturb and it will ring. You've got other options when you want to allow calls. You can allow calls from everyone, just your favorite groups. You could have an emergency group and you could allow calls from those people. You can also modify the notifications of all of the apps that you have. Let's say, for example, BBC iPlayer. I don't really want to get notifications from that, so I'll just turn that off. I can also select whether the badge app icon, that's where you get that little red number when you've got something happening. I can turn these off. So let's take one that we get. Let's take SMS or messages. I want to receive it. I'm going to show my 5 or 10 most recent items. I can choose on the screen where it's going to display. So it can display at the top banner, or it can give me a message in the middle. I'm going to select the message in the middle. I want to know that there's an alert on the badge icon, so I want a little red number, so I leave that as on. I can choose my tone that I want. I like tweet, which gives me that noise every time I've got one. I'll just store that. Oops, sorry, that goes to the store. Don't do that. That's if you wanted to buy a tone. So we just put it onto tone. Show in preview. When you've got when you're on your screen and your menu, I can't show it on this particular one. Oh, I can. You can drag down this screen from anywhere in your iPad, now that I've just discovered, and you can see all of my notifications. So this is what that means, show in preview. Repeat alert. Yes, you want to know that you've got a message, but I don't want it to keep telling me, but you can say do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Show messages from everyone, or I can show from my contacts only. And view in lock screen, so when the iPad is in the locked mode, it will still show up. And you can do those for pretty much any of the applications that have notification settings on here. Let's go to my golf link. Yes, I want to know. Sounds. I don't really want to have a sound every time it goes on. So those are notifications. Have a play around with that. Any questions, put some comments. General. In the About screen, this tells you everything about your mobile. So this is the name. I can change my name by typing in there. That's my network that I'm on, Telstra. This is how many songs I have. This is how many videos I have. This is how many photos I've got, how many applications I have. This is the capacity of my iPad, and this is what's available. So I'm letting my iPad run a little bit low. I need to sort something out and delete some of these photos. This is my software version. Always try and keep your software version up to date. And this is model Wi-Fi address, which you don't really need to bother about. So to go back to the General tab, we click up here. Software update. This is where you'll get an icon badge to say you need to do a software update. The next software update I will record so that we can see it being done. You will do it here. Usage. So this shows me what my storage capacity has been, and any cellular usage that I've got. So it's just going and seeing what's using all of the space on my iPad. Battery percentage, you can see up the top here I've got 24% battery remaining. If I turn that off, it just tells me nothing really. So battery percentage I find a useful feature. Usage, this tells me how much usage I've had on my iPad since the last full charge. Cellular usage, that tells me that I've sent 99.3 meg and I've received 472 meg. If I wanted to reset that, let's say at the beginning of my bill, then you can just reset that and that'll go to 0, so you can monitor it. Okay, the thing that we were waiting to load. So at the moment I've got 55.6 gigabytes used, and this is where it's being used. So majority is being used in cameras and photos, so 17.8 gigabytes, and it gives me, here I've used 12 on the camera roll, 5 on my photo library, and 757 megabytes on my photo stream. My music also uses quite a lot. So I've got all of my music is 14.3 gigabytes, and here's some audio books that are using up a little bit of space. So you can go through that and just see what's using if you do have a space problem. Next is Siri. We have a separate session on Siri, but this is where you would change your Siri settings. VPN we're not going to cover. iTunes Wi-Fi sync. This enables you to sync with your Mac over Wi-Fi. Spotlight search. Spotlight search is when you go to your iPad and you click there, that is your spotlight search. So if I search for John Thompson, I can see my contacts for John, my SMSs, any emails, any notes with that person's name in. That's the spotlight search. So what we're looking at here in the settings is what applications you want to search and the priority. So do you want to search for reminders, audio books? You know, you can turn that on and off. You can also change the order priority that it shows you using these buttons here. You just hold your finger on it and messages will show above applications. Have a play around with it. Auto lock, this is how long before your iPad locks. So you can change this to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, never. Passcode lock, this is where you'll set whether you have a passcode on or off. If you turn a passcode on, it will require a passcode and you choose your passcode. Simple passcode is a 4-digit passcode. Turning simple passcode off, you can use a password. It can be whatever you want. Allow access when locked. Let's say, for example, your screen, your iPad or iPhone is locked, but you want to be able to use Siri, or you want to display the picture frame, you can turn those applications on. iPad cover lock unlock. This is when you have a smart iPad cover. It uses a magnetic strip at the bottom of your iPad and it can turn it on and off, or unlock it when you open it and lock it when you close it. Restrictions. This is if you wanted to disable, let's say for example your granddaughter was using your iPad and you didn't want her to be able to install any apps, you could disable installing apps. So turn enable restrictions on by clicking that button, and turn installing apps on, and it will prevent your granddaughter installing any apps. But it also prevents you. You have to go and disable the restrictions and then come in here and switch it on so that you can use it. It's a bit of a pain, but I guess convenient if it was a child's iPad only. Lock rotation. So on the side of the iPad there's a switch which the default is set to mute. It's basically, it's next to, just to the right hand side of your volume buttons, and you can use this as a lock rotation button or a mute button. So currently for mute, I've got it, when I set it to on, my iPad is muted, so it doesn't give me any notification sounds. If I set it to lock rotation, means that when I turn my iPad around portrait to landscape, my screen won't flip. Very difficult to demonstrate on the video, but change it and test it for yourself. Multitasking features, you can turn this on or off. This just gives you a few shortcuts, and it tells you what the shortcuts are here. Pinch to the home screen, so you basically spread your palm out on the screen and then pinch your fingers in together, and it will take you to your desktop. And swipe up and down to relieve to reveal a multitasking bar. So I'm going to swipe up, or swipe left or right between the apps. It actually doesn't show on the video. Let's see if I can get it. I think it's going to be better to demonstrate this with pictures, but I might do a separate blog on this, but I'll try and talk you through it. So if you put your whole hand spread out on your iPad and you pinch everything in together, you go to the home screen. If you do the opposite, so start with all your fingers closed and then spread out your palm, you will bring up this multitasking bar, and this shows you all of the applications that are currently open and could be doing something on your iPad. So if your iPad's running slow, then you will just close these. Closing them doesn't delete them. You can just press on the icon to make it jiggle, and then you can just close all of these apps and your iPad will run faster. I would only do this if you found that the battery was draining and some iPads were doing some things in the background, or your iPad was slow. But as you can see, I've got quite a few open. So I want to get back to the home screen. I can spread my fingers out, and then the other one is if you take 4 fingers and scrape and swipe from right to left. So I'm in an application. Let me just go into my email, and I use my 4 fingers. It will take me to the settings, then I'll go to all of the apps that are open, so you can just continue scrolling through to your apps. So if I go the other way, I should get back to my settings instead of using the menu button. Okay, so that was multitasking gestures left on. Again, you choose to use them whether you want to. Date and time. This is the date and time of your iPad. So do you want 24-hour clock or 12-hour? Time zone. Set automatically just means it uses your location services to tell you where you are. So when you go to Spain on holiday, it will automatically pick up that you're in Spain and it will change the time. Keyboard, this is the keyboard that you use. You've got some preferences there that can go through auto capitalization, auto correction, checking spelling, etc. And we covered this in more detail in another blog. International, this gives you option of different calendars and keyboards. I only have English. I have 2 keyboards just because I have emoji icons on, which again I'll show you in a separate blog. Accessibility, you can have, if you've got any vision impairments, you can do voiceover, Zoom, etc., and that will be covered in a separate blog. One that is very useful is this Speak Auto Text, which I think quite a few people will like. And that's what that happens is when that's on and I'm typing an email and I type in incorrectly, it will tell me, if I didn't have my iPad on mute, it will tell me that it's going to autocorrect it. So let's try that again. Not sure if you heard that. Let me turn the sound up. Okay, so it's told me that it's corrected that, and I can choose whether to accept that correction or not, which is a handy feature because I know a lot of people like the autocorrection feature but hate it when you don't want it to autocorrect. Everything else you don't really have to worry about on that screen. If you needed to reset it, then you can reset here, and I don't recommend that. Okay, so that's general. That's really the bulk of the settings. Sounds, if you want to change your ringer alert, here I've got my ringer on maximum, and I've got it that I don't change it with the button. So this is the volume ringer, so this is for FaceTime. I always want to know when FaceTime is calling, and it's always the loudest it can be. So I've got my ringtone, I've got this set to, I've chosen a theme, which is Africa, because my mum FaceTimes me from there. But you can select any change by, oh that's terrible, by just collecting that. And those are all of the alerts that I've got. I don't have keyboard clicks on. That goes tick 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 when you're typing on your keyboard, and the lock sound goes when you press your lock, switch your iPad off. Those are those 2. Brightness and wallpaper. If I wanted to change the screen brightness of my screen, it's done via this. So if you're in a dark room and you don't want it to be too bright or disturb your partner, then you can turn that down here. Your wallpaper, you can save and pick some photos to add to your wallpaper. Now the wallpaper is the screen at the bottom, at the back, and your lock screen is that screen. Okay, so when we go into our settings and you want to change, you can select on a photo, you can choose the standard ones that are there, and you can set as your home screen or your lock screen or both. Okay, I'm not going to change mine, I like it, so that's where you set those. Picture frame. Now when you've got, I'll show you how to access your picture frame. We'll just go through the settings, dissolve or origami. I've got dissolve, it's just, I think it's less in your face. I've set my photos to show for 3 seconds each. It zooms in on faces, so it just basically changes the aspect of the photo, makes it look more interactive and live. If you want to shuffle your photos so they're not in order, I like mine to be, if it's a Spain holiday, I like them all to be in order, but if you didn't want them to be, you could shuffle it, and then you can choose various albums that you want. So I've got Queenstown, Double Happy, that's our boat, set as my photo screen. So how do we get our photos on? You double click on your menu icon, or as we just learned with the gestures, you go from your 5 fingers spread palm to in, and you'll get your multitasking bar, and please ignore what I just said about the photos stream. If you get on your lock screen, you'll see there's a little icon here that looks like a flower. So what we're going to do is press that, and that will then start displaying your digital photos as it would on a digital photo frame. I'm going to go back into settings. Privacy. I'm going to, when we've got location services, this is the apps that use your GPS. So for example, if you wanted Siri to find out what the weather was going to be like, she's not going to know unless she knows where you are. So you have to enable location services. Your camera, if you want your camera to know where you've taken the photo from, it needs location services on. TomTom, if it's going to need to know where to direct you from or put your little bubble where you are on the map, it's going to need location services on. So these are all of the apps that your GPS uses to make them more interactive. So you choose whether you want those on or not, but obviously you will take some of the function out of a lot of the apps if you don't have them on. On contacts, these are all of the applications that currently have access to my contacts. I turned off Aimpoint. I just didn't see any relevance for them to have access to it. So calendars, that's the only application that has access to my calendars. Photos, this is one that has some good features in other applications. So for example, if I was to do Instagram, if I took Instagram off, then I couldn't use my existing camera roll with Instagram. Pages, if I wanted to do a Word document or Keynote, I wanted to do a PowerPoint presentation, I wanted to add in a picture, if I don't have access to my photos enabled here, I won't be able to do that. Twitter and Facebook. So it's all, you can manage what you share via this privacy. So if you're ever in doubt, come into the privacy, see what's sharing your applications, and you'll be able to do that. And that's all on the general settings. Everything else we will cover when we go through individual applications or functions. Thanks. That was a painful long session, but thanks for your attention.